How's it going, everyone? It's Avi from Marshall. That was today. It's February 19th, 2021, and today we're gonna focus on the next potential snowstorm that could bring well over 6 inches of snow in some areas, and we'll also talk about the snowstorm that's currently happening right now in the Northeast. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the European model 84 hours from now, which is approximately 3 days from now, and you see that there's a I wouldn't say a potent, but there's a decently sized trough moving through the United States, which is bringing heavy snow on the eastern side, and then we're seeing a decent amount of moderate snow on the northern side, as there's just enough cold air and just enough unstable air to really create this snowstorm. If we move further back based off what the GFS model is saying, I want to show the GFS model because the GFS model exemplifies the idea of unstable air in the Midwest a little bit more, thanks to the well-defined contour lines, where typically the 540 millibar contour line is approximately where the jet stream is. If we take a look at that, this storm is going to originate again from the Northwest Pacific. It's going to move well far south than what you typically see from a trough coming from Northwest Pacific, which would enhance the unstable air for this storm to really get itself going once it reaches the Midwest. However, the thing is with this low pressure system is that although it's coming fairly south and it's bringing a lot of that cold air further south, it isn't necessarily very strong, and because of that, the pressure gradient between the ridge that's going to form in the Rocky Mountains and this trough moving through, since this trough is so weak, there isn't going to be very strong northerly winds with it, or strong winds in general, which means that it's less likely to pull a lot of that cold air further south to make it potentially a lot more potent. Based off of what the two computer models are agreeing on, they aren't agreeing on this storm to be crazy strong. However, it still has the potential of becoming major for some areas, especially in the Northeast, where you see that if we move forward to around 60 to 66 hours from now, the storm doesn't really strengthen very much, and you see that by the 66-hour mark, right around 3 days from now on Sunday the 21st, it's a fairly weak trough with only just a couple of scattered snow showers throughout Iowa, Minnesota, and maybe a little bit of rain showers just to the south of it. And if we continue to move forward, you're going to see that it will begin to strengthen once it encounters a little bit more unstable air. There's going to be a ridge that's going to steer a lot of those that warm southerly air further northward, and it's going to create some unstable air for this low pressure system to work with, and it will strengthen gradually as it heads further east. I would say just east of Chicago is when we'll really see the storm gradually intensify. However, this storm won't be very strong because by the time it really strengthens to its max potential, it's going to be well off the coast. It seems like as the computer models are agreeing on that. And this storm is just going to come off the Northwest Pacific as very weak, so it won't bring a lot of northwesterly winds that bring that cold air further south to create a more unstable environment. So as a result, however, there still will be enough unstable air to get at least some convection going with this storm and to really create this low pressure system, and as a result we could see potentially another big snowstorm for the Northeast. So in terms of timing, you see that 84 hours from now, a little bit more than 3 days from now, approaching 4 days from now, we see a widespread area of snow throughout the Northeast. If we compare that to a European model 84 hours out, they're pretty similar in the timing, but the European model is a little bit slower, which I suspect is because as it's moving through the north, as this storm is moving through the Midwest, it's going to be fairly weak. The European isn't expecting as much of a jet stream dip or as much unstable air, so to strengthen this storm very early. So as a result, the jet stream winds are going to be weaker, the upper level winds are going to be weaker. So as a result, this storm is moving ever so slowly, but isn't anything major, I'd say. But it's at least important to keep in track of the timing, because you don't want to stay unprepared come Monday morning when the snow is right at your doorstep. So we have to keep in mind of the timing. The European is a little slower, the GFS model is a little bit faster, but in terms of strength and power of this storm, the European model is definitely more lenient on bringing more snow and heavier snow throughout a larger area of the Northeast, where the snow is extending further southward. It expects a little bit more cold air to be located in the Northeast, so a lot of the more southern cities such as Philadelphia, New York City, and even Washington DC could get involved with this storm because the snow swath is expected to move further south based off of what the GFS model is saying. The European model is saying, and you see that there's heavy snow throughout Pennsylvania, and it's extending to the metropolitan areas of New York City as well and upstate New York. However, one thing you might notice is that this storm is going to move relatively quickly. 6 hours from now, the snow is already off to the north of New York City and a lot of the big cities pretty much, as it seems like the storm sort of took that steer up north to make it more of a rain event later during the run. Later during the forecast run 4 days out. And however, the GFS model is more lenient on bringing that snow, the worst of the snow further northward. Maybe the higher elevations of Pennsylvania might get some snow, but the East Coast, however, isn't expected to get much snow from this at this point, based if the GFS model was correct. So what could change the forecast, because we're still 4 days out, there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the forecast. So the things that could change the forecast is how much cold air will be located in the Northeast come 4 days from now, because if there's a little bit more cold air than anticipated, that would mean that you're more likely to see a heavier snowfall threat along the coastal cities of the Northeast, such as Philadelphia, New York City, and Washington, D.C., and that snow will move further southward. So Virginia and West Virginia and Delmarva Peninsula might get more involved as well. However, if there's less cold air, this will likely primarily be only an interior Northeast threat, with most of the East Coast cities getting rainfall. And also another detrimental factor is how much unstable air there will be once it hits the Midwest, because if the unstable air is a little bit more than anticipated, we could see a stronger storm, and we could see areas well over 6 inches and maybe get some areas over 8 inches of snow if this were to get stronger. There's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the forecast 4 days out. However, at this point, I can say with confidence that there's at least going to be a low pressure system moving through the United States, especially the Midwest and the Northeast, and it will bring snow. It's pretty much inevitable. However, exactly where remains to be seen, since the computer models have some disagreements regarding the snow forecast, the radar forecast, and how strong or slow or fast moving the storm is. The European is a little bit slower and also a little bit stronger, impacting the Northeast, while the GFS is a little bit weaker and a little bit less impactful once it reaches the Northeast. So there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the forecast when both computer models are disagreeing with the forecast. But I'd say in the interior Northeast, it's likely no matter what scenario is going to happen, you will experience snow. The question more remains if this will impact the Interstate 95 corridor cities such as New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C. We have to wait and see how much cold air and how strong this storm will be to see if this could be another major snowstorm for you guys, which is the least the Northeast needs, because it's been a rough February when it comes to snowstorms. You obviously had Winter Storm Uri in very early on February, and you had Winter Storm Uri, which is currently impacting you guys, and you had that other winter storm that came through right around the middle of February, dumping a decent amount of snow throughout the Northeast. So for a lot of the Northeast, you're probably already fed up with snow, but there still could be another snowstorm come 4 days from now. But let's take a look at the snowfall forecast and really see what the GFS model and the European model is forecasting at this point. So if we take a look at a GFS model, assuming that 1 inch of rain equates to 10 inches or so, you see that there's actually, let me go further back to include like Uri's snowfall forecast, because I don't want this current snowfall forecast to really seem like it's a part of this next snowstorm that's coming through. So for today, mostly expect 1 to 3 inches throughout the Northeast, not a ton of snow, but once this next snowstorm moves through, you see that there's a decent amount of, there's definitely more snow throughout the Northeast, and we do see areas of over 6 inches of snow in the isolated pink areas, primarily in the higher elevations, but even in the lower elevations, you see pretty much a big area of 3 to 6 inches affecting all of the Northeast pretty much, and going as far south as Philadelphia and New York City is a little bit involved. However, I'd say at this point, the GFS is more so forecasting the snow to be, I'd say, just the northeast of the Interstate 95 corridor, as Philadelphia doesn't really get much of any snow, and New York City gets a little bit of snow, but not much. So it's definitely something to keep in mind how much cold air will be located. And the European, however, is a little bit more lenient on bringing heavier snow closer to the coast. If we take a look at the total accumulated snowfall forecast 102 hours from now, well, let's take a look at the snowfall forecast over the next 18 hours. And you see mainly around 1 to 2 inches of snow throughout the eastern half of the United States, right around the Northeast. But if we take a look 102 hours from now, you see that snowfall range increases to over 3 to 6 inches of snow throughout the Northeast, and you see that there's some isolated areas with like over 6 inches of snow in the higher elevations, but for the most part it's 3 to 6 inches. So they're agreeing regarding the snowfall forecast, but I'd say the European model is slightly more lenient on bringing that snowstorm further south, but not by a ton. Philadelphia is right on the border of getting no snow to 3 to 6 inches of snow from this, so it's going to be a close call for you guys. And New York City as well, it's going to be close, but the current consensus is 3 to 6 inches. And then you see right around Washington DC, it's right around 1 to 3 inches, I'd say, more so than 3 to 6. So it's definitely something to keep and watch, depending on how much cold air there is. So because that will be a huge, that will determine the snowfall very definitely throughout the Northeast. And in terms of the snowfall forecast, in terms of the timing of this, you're going to see the storm come off the west coast and bring snow throughout the west coast and also the Rocky Mountain ranges. So if we take a look at the Futurecast radar, once this loads up, you're going to see that the snowstorm will come off the northwest Pacific. It's going to be very weak and won't have much going for it, but then it begins to form snow bands right around 10 a.m. on Sunday. And then I'd say by Monday, this snowstorm will reach you guys in the Northeast, so we need to keep that in mind. So in terms of the snowfall forecast, I'm currently expecting from this storm. So in the pink, I'm expecting 6 to 10 inches, but I think it's going to be a little bit over 6 inches in the more isolated spots. Like I'm talking about the higher elevations. So the good news for some of you is that this won't really affect the major populated areas, but for the higher elevations, this could be a problem. And then a large area, primarily 3 to 6 inches. And looking back on this map, I think I might have over-exaggerated the snowfall right around the coastal New Jersey and Millmore Peninsula, as I think 1 to 3 to no snow is more likely along coastal Northeast. But for the most part, a good area of 3 to 6 inches throughout the Northeast, which is definitely at least something to keep in mind, because 3 to 6 inches could still cause some problems when you're traveling, especially on the roads. So you guys need to pay attention closely to this storm. And we're 4 days out. There's still a possibility the storm could strengthen, move further south to where it affects the Northeast cities a little bit more, and a lot definitely could change. And regarding the 6 to 10 inch snowfall forecast, I think the more lower end is likely, like 6 to 8, but there could be, again, those isolated areas which get over 10 inches of snow for this storm. And even exiting the Midwest, you see that I'm expecting 3 to 6 inches throughout Michigan and eastern Wisconsin, and then 1 to 3 just to the west of that. So you guys definitely need to keep this in mind because this could be our next potential major snowstorm in the Northeast, adding on to what we've already seen, which is just a lot of snow in the Northeast. But moving on to this current snowstorm that's still impacting the Northeast, so we still have today to go for a lot of Northeast where we see the snow extending through the Northeast, the eastern, especially the East Coast, as we have a little bit of another trough that formed as a result of this unstable air, and it's going to bring at least another 1 to 3 inches of snow throughout the coastal regions of the Northeast to add on to what you've already experienced, which is definitely something you might not want to see, because 2 days of getting snowed in is just never a good thing unless you like the snow. But this should fortunately move out right around Friday night and going into very early Saturday, where the snow is on its last legs pretty much in New England, and should be completely out of here by Saturday morning and headed into Saturday afternoon, which is definitely good news, as this was another impactful snowstorm for the Northeast, and we just have to wait and see for the next one, if this next one can be big. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. And I hope you guys have a good day.